My first cruise decades ago was total chaos. I made so many errors and wasted over $1,000. And still today, every time I cruise, I see hundreds of passengers making these same mistakes. So I put together a list of 10 unwritten rules for new cruisers for a better cruise experience. Number 7 alone will save you hundreds. Number 3 could make or break your entire cruise vacation. I'm Gary with Optimal Cruising, bringing you fresh cruise advice, money-saving hacks, and secret strategies the cruise lines don't advertise. Let's get started. On my first cruise, I thought I was getting an incredible deal. $1,400 for 2 adults, 7-night vacation, all inclusive. How can you do better than that? But then I realized that didn't include my gratuities for all the service staff on board. And then my wife started talking about all the activities she wanted to do at the various ports of call. And all of a sudden, my $1,400 vacation turned into a $3,000 vacation. Now, it is possible to treat a cruise like an all-inclusive resort and do it for dirt cheap. And I've done that, where I never spent a penny on anything extra. If I got off the ship at ports of call, it was just to look around a little bit. I didn't pay for shore excursions, and I had a great time. But if you're planning on doing any extras, make sure you're budgeting for them, and definitely budget for the gratuities, because that's quite an expense and an add-on at the end of your cruise. And while you're budgeting, don't let price be the sole factor in determining your cruise. Here's why. So my very first cruise, I got lucky. I booked with Carnival, and I was young. I was looking for a party, and that's exactly what I got. But if you get on the wrong cruise line, it could completely ruin your experience. For example, if you're traveling with kids, your best bet is to go with a family-friendly cruise line like Norwegian or Royal Caribbean or MSC. And if you're looking for a couples cruise or to get away from the kids, you can try Virgin, which is adults only, but also Holland America, Celebrity, Princess. They have fewer kids on board those lines. Disney is a great one for kids, but it is a premium cruise line, so it costs a lot more. And then if you're looking for a party cruise, your best bet is a short cruise, a 3 or 4 day cruise. Typically, you'll find those out of Miami. And regardless of cruise line, you're going to have a bigger party atmosphere on those short cruises. And time of year matters as well. So if you're booking a cruise while school is in session, it really doesn't matter so much which cruise line you book. You're going to see far fewer kids. But which cruise line you book with doesn't even come close to the one thing that could really ruin your cruise. I'll be honest, after decades of cruising, cabin location doesn't really bother me. I'm not prone to seasickness, and I sleep like a rock. So deck chairs being dragged across the ceiling doesn't wake me up. Thumping bass music coming from a nightclub doesn't really bother me. But it can bother a lot of cruisers. And so I highly recommend that as a new cruiser, you select a specific cabin. And the best way to do this is find one that has cabins completely surrounding yours. That doesn't just mean on the left and the right that you have a cabin there, which will usually be the case, but that above and below you, you have cabins as well. That means you're situated in the middle, and you'll have a much quieter experience. You'll be able to sleep better, nap better, and probably enjoy your cruise better. And if those things don't matter to you as much, as you go on more cruises, you can explore some of the other cabins, but some of them can be quite noisy, especially at the front of the ship. You can hear the waves banging against the hull. Sometimes if you're in the lower deck, you can hear engine noises. So there are a lot of things to consider. But as a rule of thumb, if you book in the middle, of all the different cabins, you won't have a problem. Picking the right cabin can be crucial to enjoying your cruise, but if you want the peace of mind that you got the best deal, you need to do this. Last year, I was on a cruise and I met a couple of first-time cruisers. And they told me that the process of booking their first cruise was so confusing to them that they simply just called up the cruise line, told them when they wanted to go, and took the agent's advice on what to book and what the cost was. But they ended up overpaying for their cruise by several $100s because they didn't check prices. Seasoned cruisers who are looking for the best deal on their cruise vacation will always compare prices between the cruise line's website and one or more cruise travel agency websites, because sometimes the best deal will actually be found with an agency and it'll be a lower price than what the cruise line's offering. Weird, right? But it happens a lot. And then in other cases, you'll find a lower price on that cruise line website, so you would want to book direct to get the best deal. If you see a price drop after you booked your cruise, it's always a good idea to call the cruise line or the travel agency that you booked with and ask them to bring your price down to that newer price. In many cases, they will do so. We have an online cruise travel agency that we use that tends to have the lowest prices I've seen, and I put a link to that in the comment section if you're interested. But there's another thing smart cruisers do to avoid wasting money. I'm going to talk about that next. But first, if you're new to cruising or a first-time cruiser, I want to know what cruise line you're considering going on. Put it in the comments below. Every time I go on a cruise, inevitably, I can't help but notice the number of passengers flooding into the gift shop as soon as the cruise hits the open waters, buying things like sunscreen and seasickness medication at triple the cost because they didn't pack smart. We have an entire video on how to pack for a cruise, but there's two simple things that you can do that will keep you from wasting money and ensure you have a better cruise experience. So the first thing is make sure you bring any sundry items that you might need on that cruise with you. And the second thing is bring a carry-on bag where you have some items that you'll need the first day, such as a swimsuit and your sunscreen, because you may not get your actual luggage that you've checked with the porter when you arrived until the evening of the first day of your cruise. But there's one more important thing you want to make sure is in that carry-on luggage. On a recent cruise, I was talking to a passenger I met, and he said that his wife was sick for the first 2.5 days of the cruise because they forgot to put her seasickness medication in their carry-on bag. And the problem is, once you start to get seasick, it's harder to combat. If you know you're prone to seasickness, or even if you're not sure, you should take preventative measures and get that medication on board early before the ship leaves the dock. Especially if you wear those seasickness scopolamine patches behind the ear, it takes a while for that medication to get going. And if you get sick first, it takes a lot longer to overcome that. But seasickness isn't the only thing you need to plan for. Failing to follow this next rule could cost you thousands. I always remember this one newbie cruiser who told me on his very first cruise, he thought he had to book every single excursion for every port of call directly through the cruise line in advance. And so that's what he did. And he had a great time, but he ended up overpaying by almost $1,000 for those experiences. And another couple was recently telling me on their very first cruise, they just decided to wing it. They'd see what they could find at the ports of call, and they ended up not doing much at all. So you really need to plan for the ports of call you're going to be visiting. Cruise ship ports of call come in a lot of varieties. At some ports, you can step right off the ship and have a whole bunch of stuff to do for free right there. And you don't even have to spend any extra money. Other ports of call If you just get off the ship and you don't get a taxi or a transfer somewhere, there's absolutely nothing to do. Some people have a great time at certain ports of call without spending a dime. Other people want to book excursions everywhere. And if you're going to book shore excursions, make sure you shop around. A shore excursion is a huge profit center for them. You can find similar or better shore excursions from independent companies. I've got 2 links below in the description if you want to check them out. But a lot of people question me when I say that because they're worried that they might not make it back to the ship on time. Well, one of these companies, Shore Excursion Group, which is an independent operator, absolutely guarantees you make it back to the ship in time. And then at many ports of call, you can do an excursion all on your own. This is especially true at European ports, where a lot of times you can walk right into the city and do a walking tour, see the sights, and do it at your own pace without paying a lot of money. And ports of call isn't the only place you need to do some planning. Let's look at one of the most popular areas on the cruise ship. But first, if I've given you some helpful tips so far, please subscribe to our channel and get all of our cruising updates. One of the more common complaints I hear from first-time cruisers is that they had no idea how difficult it would be to get a good spot by the pool. Cruise ship pools are one of the most popular areas on board. And if you want a good spot, you will see that by 7 and 8 a.m., most of the chairs are taken. People put their stuff out on them and claim them, even if they're not sitting there. So if you want a spot, you kind of have to play that game. You need to get up before 7 a.m. Between 6 and 7 is when they've got the chairs set up, and you go out there, find a spot, put your stuff down, preferably have somebody in your party stay with it. But if not, at least you've secured a spot. And as long as you don't leave it unattended for too long, you'll have no problem keeping it throughout the day. And if you're not going to be at the pool all day and you just want a time to sit out there and enjoy it, try in the late afternoon, after 4 o'clock. Most people are leaving around that time. And another strategy that seasoned cruisers use, if you're not interested in visiting a port of call, or maybe you just want to get off and check it out, but you're not going to do an excursion there, get back on the ship and enjoy the pool deck then. It will be much less crowded, and you'll almost always find a seat while the ship is in port. Not getting a good spot by the pool can be disappointing, but this next rule could make or break your entire vacation. I once ran into a first-time cruiser on a transatlantic cruise, and he really didn't enjoy it. He didn't know what he was getting into. And we don't recommend booking this kind of cruise as your first cruise. You should always book a popular destination when you're trying cruising out, because those are the cruises that most people love. And it'll give you an experience and help you decide what types of cruises you may want to go on in the future. So the best areas to book are destinations in the Caribbean or the Mediterranean or Alaska. These are all very popular cruises with very few sea days, so you have a lot of opportunity to get off the ship and explore, and you get to see what cruising is all about. And the length of the cruise matters as well. A 6 or 7 night cruise is your best bet for your first cruise. That's the most popular length, and it's a good amount of time to experience cruising, but not too long that you'll get sick of it. Or if you don't like it that much, you don't have to look forward to a whole nother week of it. And that's not even the worst thing that could happen to your vacation. I know many seasoned cruisers, and almost all of them swear that you should never fly on embarkation day. So the day that you're getting on your ship, you do not want to be on an airplane, because things happen all the time with airplanes. You can get weather delays, you can have mechanical delays, you can have pilots that are out of hours and can't fly. And if you get delayed enough on the day of your cruise, you'll miss your ship. And in that case, That money's gone, no refunds at all. We always recommend getting into your port where you're leaving from the day before or a couple days before if you want to spend some time exploring that port. This ensures that you're not going to ruin your trip by missing the ship. Following these rules will help you enjoy a better cruising experience and possibly save you a lot of money. But there are some other big ripoffs happening right now on cruise ships. I'll tell you how to avoid those right here.